Welcome back to another episode of the Inquisitive Mamba podcast. This is episode 104. I hope everyone is having a great week. My guest on tonight's show for the Inquisitive Mamba podcast is Viktor Beach, a dear friend of mine. Victor, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Let's do it, baby. I'm excited.
So I want everyone to get a chance to know you, kind of introduce yourself. Before that, Victor is a former Division I college football player at Purdue University. He is now coaching for Bishop Verot, specializing in football. And when he's not coaching, he's not working, he's traveling all around the world. So Victor, it's a pleasure to have you on, man.
I'm excited, man. Let's get into it.
Let's do it. So I want everyone to kind of get to know who you are and, kind of take it from there.
All right. So, yeah, I grew up here in Fort Myers, Florida. Grew up with Joey here at Bishop Verot in high school. We've got plenty of stories and plenty of good times together in high school. And it really is awesome to be sitting here with you right now. So many years later, I feel like you hear a lot of stories in high school about, being friends in high school and then going off to college and, going your separate ways. And I know we got a lot of friends like that are doing their thing across the country, and that's awesome. But it is really special to be able to come home and, you've got your podcast going, which is awesome. It's great to see all the guests that you got on. And, I couldn't be more grateful to have done what I did in college and to be back here at home with, family and friends, and to be sitting here right now and being able to do this. So I'm excited.
When you were a young kid, when did football come about for you?
So honestly, and I've been having this conversation with a couple guys a lot recently, especially with MLB starting up and baseball starting back up. Baseball was always my favorite sport. That's what I kind of loved growing up as a kid. That's what I wanted to do. And then when I got to Verot, I was at ECS all of kindergarten growing up, and then went to SFCA for middle school. And then ended up coming to Verot my sophomore year for football specifically, but for baseball also. I've always been a bigger kid, a taller kid. But even then, sophomore year, I was probably only about 6'3", 215-ish, which obviously is a large person,
Yeah.
But for what I was and what I got to in terms of playing college ball, it wasn't that big. And I remember those nights like sitting at home practicing long snapping with my dad, because I was like, if I want to play college football, the only way I'm going to be able to do it is to long snap, because I'm not big enough, not fast enough, not strong enough, whatever. As a little freshman, not knowing having any idea about what the next 4 years are going to bring. So it was always, I played first base, third base, catcher, and I pitched in high school in baseball. That's what I loved. That's what I wanted to do. Then I got to Verot. Sophomore year, I put on about 30 pounds. I think I played at 6'4", 245 that year, and I played really well. Played a lot of games with a lot of really older guys. And then that off season, I started to get a lot of looks from colleges, and it kind of all became real. And talking with people, talking with former guys, some older guys that were currently playing college ball, and they let me know that it was a possibility and it was something that I could do. And that's when it became a reality. And when it really sank in, when I really made that decision, was that spring of sophomore year at Verot. I wanted to go play baseball, but I was told straight off the bat from the coaches, like, hey, we've been to the state championship the last couple of years, like, you're going to be on JV, like, we're not even going to, waste your time and give you a shot at varsity. And so I had to make the decision, either play JV baseball or play spring football, because I couldn't do both. And as a coach now, it's funny looking back, because we deal with that a lot we got a lot of kids that play football and baseball both. So, we wish our baseball team success, but at the same time, as a football coach, it's a little selfish. You kind of want their season to be over so you can get those kids back to play football. But yeah, that's where I was at that sophomore year, deciding whether I wanted to go play JV baseball or give it up and stick to spring football and make that my mission. And that's what I did, which I couldn't be more grateful for, because I had that full spring my sophomore year. And there were a lot of college coaches that came down, and I performed really well. Went to some camps that summer in between my sophomore and junior year. Put on some weight, got really strong, and then it was off to the races from there. I kind of dove in head first football, and I mean that's what you got to do. You got to pick something. I know it's tough. There's a lot of gifted kids out there that are able to do a lot of different things and be great at all of them. But for me, I had to pick one thing and give it my all just to get where I got.
So when you were in high school, how many offers did you get from college programs?
I think the final number that my mom always talked about it, and she brags about it a lot, but I think the final number that we had was 26.
Wow. Yeah. What was your biggest college offer?
So I had, in terms of SEC, I had Mississippi State, South Carolina, and Florida. Florida was my dream school. I mean, I could dive deep into the whole college recruiting thing and how things fall apart. It was like a week span where I was committed to UCF and then wanted to go to Florida, and then all the Florida coaches got fired and left. And then like 3 days later, I ended up at Purdue in West Lafayette, Indiana. So it's crazy how it all transpires really quickly. It's a lot different. When I was in high school, there was the set signing day. It was that first Wednesday in February, and that was it. You know, all the kids got their offers. You had to commit and sign by that day in February. But now there's like an early signing day in December, and then the late signing day in February, and all the NIL stuff. And you know, I give credit to the kids these days, and especially the coaches in college, trying to handle it all and the whirlwind that college recruiting and college athletics is today. You know, but I was lucky in that sense of, you know, there's a set date. This is when you got to decide by, and this is when you're going to sign, and this is when it's going to start. So, yeah, I mean, it was tough, but a lot easier to make the decision and have that set in stone and go forward. Because if I had to do it in this day and age, I don't know what I would do or where I would be.
I feel like the college landscape has changed forever, especially with NIL. We'll get to that. But your time at Purdue, you had a lot of ups and downs. Mm-hmm. So talk about the highs and lows when you were at Purdue.
Man, I mean, it was a great time. I mean, I came in and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. You know, I think you could talk to a lot of high school and college athletes that go from that senior year of high school to first year of college transition period. And at least I did. I'm hoping that a couple guys did, but not just myself. But I did get a little bit hot-headed, and I thought I was that guy, and you know, I kind of slacked off that second semester in high school, and kind of just did whatever I wanted to do, and you know, hang out with my friends. And I'm like, you know, I'm going away to Indiana. I don't care about working out. I'll work out once I get there. Like I want to hang out with my friends and do this and do that. You know, and that kind of hurt me a little bit. That first summer, at least those first couple weeks, because I came in and I got my ass kicked, honestly. But it was great because I quickly learned that it wasn't time to joke around. Like, you're here for a reason. And that's the other, like you said, we'll get into the NIL thing. But at that point in time, in the summer of 2017, in my head, it's like, hey, I'm grateful to have my education paid for and to have a scholarship. And that was the biggest thing in the world in terms of, you know, compensation for doing what I do and doing what college athletes do. Because you look at college athletes in terms of sport, and, you know, football is one of the only sports where you have a lot of guys that are on full scholarship.
Yeah.
Basketball is another one, but you get to like baseball, volleyball, those other sports, like those athletes work just as hard and put in just the same amount of time and effort on a daily basis, but you know, they're not getting full scholarships. That's just not how it works, unfortunately. But you know, I was very blessed and grateful, and I kind of realized that summer. And so, you know, I kind of put my nose to the grindstone, and I had a lot of things to work on, a lot of things to take care of, and I quickly realized that, hey, it's time to go. But I was very blessed with a really good older group at Purdue with some good leadership. The first year that I got there, they were going through a coaching change. That was Jeff Brom's first year. And so there were a lot of guys there that had been with the old coaching staff. They've been through a lot of stuff and a lot of the old ways. So they were kind of really foundational in terms of how we came in as that first freshman class, and being that new Purdue team compared to that Purdue team of of the past where they just won 3-4 games every year, and they were sick and tired of it. And it was awesome to not, or to see them not kind of separate themselves and be like, hey, we're going to be the seniors on this team, but we're going to be selfish. We care about us. We care about this season, and we're just going to do what we're going to do. But they did a really good job of bringing in these new freshmen and really incorporating the whole team in kind of a whole culture change.
Yeah.
And not just being a one-year thing, but being a whole program thing, which was awesome. And yeah, I mean, that kind of benefited me that first year, and I kind of got over that little hump in the summer. And I was fortunate. I was lucky to live with a couple quarterbacks, and the way that quarterbacks study the playbook, the way that they have to study the playbook, and know the insides and outs of every little thing, benefited me, because we would be in the dorms in summer freshman year, and it would be 10, 11 o'clock at night, and we'd just be going through the playbooks, and I'd just be sitting there. The quarterbacks would be doing it because they had to, because they didn't have a choice. But I'm just like, I'm going to go sit there and learn as much as I can and give myself that advantage. And so I did that. Then going into fall, I kind of had a good grasp of the playbook. I kind of set myself up for success in that sense. And this is what I tell my kids coaching all the time too. It's like the more you know and the more confident you are in what you're doing, the better you're going to play, because the less you have to think.
That's a really good way to put it.
And that's true in all aspects of life. I mean, the less that you have to think, the better you're going to perform at whatever you're doing. You allow your natural talents and your strengths and your abilities to kick in, instead of having your mind focus on like what's happening. Am I sure this is what I'm doing?
Yeah.
So I got myself in that position, and I was able to succeed. And so I kind of established myself as the next center at Purdue, as on the offensive line. Being able to play. We had a really good center who was a senior leader when I got there, Kirk Barron. We're still really good friends to this day. He's a assistant O-line coach at Alabama right now. So he was kind of the first guy that I latched onto. He was actually my host on my official visit. So I got to know him really, really soon, and we built a good relationship. And he was a great player, really smart, loved the game of football, worked his ass off, high football IQ. And he just did the right things day in and day out. So I just try to kind of model myself after him. And that's what I did. And, just following him, everything was great. All the stars kind of aligned. So redshirt freshman year, sitting behind him, that redshirt freshman year, I got to get into some games, played a lot on the field goal team, then got to get into some games at center, leading up to that sophomore season of where I was supposed to be the starting center. And then, talking about highs and lows, get to the low that year leading up to when I was supposed to be the starter. We had a workout in the off season. We were doing some heavy power cleans, some heavy deadlifts. Went a little bit too heavy, wasn't feeling right. Popped something in my back, didn't feel good. And that kind of was the start of about a 1.5-year journey of back issues, which eventually led to surgery and getting medically disqualified, not being able to play anymore. But, even with that being said, I was able to kind of battle through those injuries and, get a couple starts under my belt that year, and find a way just to grit it out and go play. I sit here and I wish I could have done more. Hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah, of course.
It's easy to say, if I would have done this or I would have done that, it would have been different. But it is what it is, and I sit here today and I'm grateful for all of it, because being in the situation that I am now, coaching, I'm able to kind of take those highs and those lows and say, hey, like I got a lot of good kids that are going to go play college ball right now, and I'm able to say, hey, this is what I did, this is what happened to me, this is what I should have done, this is what could have gone differently. Like, I'm going to give these kids all the information that they can get to set them up for success, because I didn't have that information when I went through it. But
do you think if you didn't get hurt at Purdue, you would have gone to the NFL?
I mean, that was the goal, man. That was obvious. That was definitely the goal. I think that I was in a really good position to do it.
Yeah.
I think that I was, especially being as young as I was when I was in that position, as a redshirt sophomore, I was 19, 20 years old.
Yeah. Wow.
I was only getting better each and every year. I was learning more. I was surrounded by a lot of NFL guys, which was, I think, and this is true with life too. I mean, you're as good as you're as good as the people you surround yourself with.
You're as good as the company that you keep.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I was very fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of NFL guys who worked their asses off every single day. And I had a lot of good coaches. And it wasn't hey, we're going to have a good time and whatever happens, school. I mean, we were a group that was like, hey, we know what we need to do, and we're going to come in and we're going to do it every day. And if we don't expect much.
Wow.
So I did have high expectations for myself. Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to be able to start a lot of games in the Big Ten, and be successful, and then you're going to be if you can do that, you're going to be in a good position to get yourself drafted, and make a name for yourself. I mean, you've met him, one of my best friends, Xander Horvath.
Yeah.
Running back for the Saints right now. I mean, that kid is, I could go on and on for hours about him, but he's one of the hardest working kids I've ever met. He was a walk-on at Purdue. Nobody knew his name. Nobody knew where he was from. But that kid came in every day, worked his ass off, got himself on the field, got himself a scholarship, did what he had to do, ended up being a draft pick to the Chargers, had a couple touchdowns there his rookie year, and last year was a weird year, but gets picked up by the Saints this year, and now he's ready to go work. So, I mean, it's a weird business. It's a weird lifestyle to be a football player in terms of college to the NFL. But yeah, I mean, that was definitely the goal, and I full-heartedly believe that if I stayed healthy, I could have and would have done it. But it is what it is. I mean, I'm grateful for how it all happened, and obviously I'd love to be sitting here saying, yeah, I'm a center for the Tampa Bay Bucks making a couple million a year, but I'm not. So it is what it is.
No, but I'm glad you're getting a chance to share your story today and kind of let everyone know who you are and stuff, because you're more than just a football player. And I think with athletes too, so many people get this misconstrued now. They're just football players. They're just football players. No, there's a lot more to them. Yeah. Like, you have a lot more to your story, but it's great for people to actually to get a chance to hear your story and kind of see who you are. But you had a remarkable college journey, and you got to give yourself a pat on the back, because going through like that, moving away from home, going to a Division I school like that, getting hurt, not knowing what's next, all the things that were probably going through your mind. So, I mean, it's a crazy, crazy world we live in. But sticking on college football, what do you think of name, image, and likeness, NIL?
I mean, my first thought is I'm a little disappointed that I wasn't born about 3 years later. But it's interesting. I think that it's great for the kids, in terms of the general population of college athletes. Because I know a lot of my buddies that are still playing, and that just finished up last year. A couple of them, they're making really good money. Yeah. And it's nothing crazy. Like, you see the Caleb Williams who are making, $4 million, whatever. Like, that's
unheard of.
that's where it gets a little bit different, is that disparity between that. But you've got some hardworking kids that are starters on a Power 5 team, so they're making 120,000 a year to do what they're doing. I think that's great. I think that's awesome. That you don't have time to go work. Right. You don't have time to have a job and do all these other little side things. And I mean, even if the kids wanted to be entrepreneurs and work on an idea or work on a business or something, you just don't have the time. So I think that kind of angle of it, of a decent amount, I think it's very beneficial. But then it's where you get to where like 50% of the kids are making less than $100,000. Then you've got about 45% of the kids making $100,000 to $200,000. And then you have this select group of the top players, the big names, that are making millions. And it becomes weird, because you look at these kids, and like a Caleb Williams, for example. I mean, #1 recruit out of high school. Every offer in the country, he can go wherever he wants to. And so before he even gets to college, he's got this aroma and name on him before even doing anything. So it's like now if you look at a senior in high school who's getting ready to go to a big Power 5 school, say he's a top 5 quarterback, whatever, like
DJ Lagway.
Yeah, or Raiola, who went to Nebraska.
Yeah.
Like, you haven't played a down of football in college football, and you're already getting evaluated of having your NIL at over $1 million.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense to me. All right? It's like, all right, you can be paid based on your performance. That's one thing. That's called the NFL. That's called professional sports.
Yeah.
And I love, especially with the NFL draft coming up, I love one of the comments that was made about Caleb Williams being, obviously the first quarterback, first guy off the board in the draft this year. It's like, traditionally when you go to the NFL draft, and this is what I dreamed about as a kid, always. I envisioned it. I thought about it. I went over it in my head. You get to the NFL Combine in Indy, and you sit down and you do interviews with coaches. And they're asking you a bunch of random questions. You're drawing up plays on the board. You're doing all that stuff. And it's a real life job interview. You're saying, hey, this is who I am. This is what I provide. This is why you should take me onto your team.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be an asset for you. But now you have a Caleb Williams where he's been making millions of dollars already as a college athlete, and he doesn't care. No. He's like, I don't need to tell you what I'm going to provide you.
Right.
I don't need to say why I'm going to be an asset. I don't need to wow you and try and make an impression on you because I already have millions of dollars. If you want to take me, take me. I don't care either way.
Yeah.
And that's what's so frustrating is now the NFL draft for the first round in general, it's becoming a free agency.
Yeah.
It's not becoming a draft of, kids that are working their ass off to come make a name for themselves and make a life for themselves. And that's what, and we'll go into it, but my buddy who coaches at Alabama now, we've had this conversation a couple times, and it leads into, we had this conversation before Nick Saban retired, but
yeah,
it coincides with Nick Saban retiring and what he's said since he has. Alabama was so good for so long because you got the best of the best around the country, the best talent, the best kids who wanted to come to Alabama to be coached by Nick Saban, to get better and go live out their dream, make money, provide for their family in the NFL.
Yeah.
And going to Alabama was the best route to do that. Now, who cares?
Right. Doesn't matter.
Why would I go to Alabama who's going to pay me $500,000 if I can go to Oregon who's going to pay me $1.5 million? Like, I don't care about bettering myself and becoming a better football player to get to the NFL because I don't have a ambition or goal to go make money and provide for my family, because I can do that as a 18, 19-year-old already through NIL. And that's where it's kind of gets iffy. But no, it's weird. Like, I didn't get NIL. I had enough money to pay for rent and buy groceries a couple times a month. And I was grateful for that. I mean, as a normal college student, everybody else, all my friends, all the friends that we know, it sucks to be a college student.
You got a little stipend from your parents if you were lucky. I will say this, and I'm not afraid to say it. I think our circle of friends were very fortunate growing up. And we're very fortunate and lucky. But a lot of other kids and people that I knew, they didn't have that luxury. There's people that I know now. Like, I worked all throughout my time in college, and I'm not saying anything was wrong with that. But we were lucky. We got a little stipend.
Right.
But now, these college football athletes are getting hundreds of thousands of dollars, you can even think of for just little social media brand deals or NIL, just however you slice it. And it's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Look at Bronny James, for example. He made $5 million with NIL last year. He barely even played this year. Yeah. And now he's in the transfer portal and he's thinking about going to the NBA. He doesn't even need to go to the NBA. He's got all this NIL money. Right. He's not good enough to be in the NBA yet, but it's just these players. Look at the situation with Marvin Harrison this past year. When if he was going to go to the draft, if he wasn't going to go to the draft, he was kind of playing the cards. Same thing with Caleb Williams. There's one thing I wanted to bring up about Caleb Williams, and I have to ask you this because you did bring up a good point. The NFL interviews at the Combine. Do you think a coach or a GM or an organization looks at Caleb Williams differently because of his appearance? And it's a real question because of the nail painting and the phone case and all that kind of stuff. Do you think like coaches look at him differently and go, that's a distraction, or I don't care because I have so much money? I mean, it's just a real question I feel like that needs to be asked.
I think that 10, 15 years ago, absolutely.
Right.
I think that in this day and age, I mean, you just look at the superstars in the NFL.
We'll look at the way Kyler Murray dresses, and I'm not making fun of anyone, but it's important because you're representing a brand.
You look at professional athletes in general, particularly the NBA.
Yeah.
But also the NFL in terms of like game day outfits.
Of course.
And the posts on social media of like this week, like BR Kicks does it, all right?
Yes.
So Xander was featured on it. Xander's a huge sneakerhead. He was featured on it a couple times. But it's like all the photos of the guys walking into the stadium and they're dressing their outfits, dressing their kicks. Like that's been a thing. It's style. That's what it is. I don't think that the style issue of Caleb Williams is presenting any sort of problem to any sort of coaches or GMs. Especially with all the other issues that he has, I don't think that that's their main concern. I think it's more of if I was an NFL coach or an NFL GM drafting Caleb Williams, obviously it's hard to put yourself in their position because you're not dealing with the money that they're dealing with or the scrutiny or the magnitude of their job. But you look and you strip it down and, okay, what's the most important thing that we're looking at? All right, talent on the field, production. That is the most important thing. All right, then it comes down to character. What kind of person is he? How is he going to do in the locker room? How is he going to interact with other people?
Yeah.
And from the outside looking in, like that should be number one.
Extremely important.
Character and morale should be number one.
100%.
But it's not. It's production.
Exactly.
And it's talent.
And if you can sell tickets.
Exactly.
And if you can put jerseys on fans.
So you go from that. Caleb Williams checks all the boxes.
Absolutely.
He's talented. He can perform on the field. He's going to be very successful. Then you get to the teamwork, morale, whatever. He may or may not check the boxes. Who knows? Then you get to what does he do outside of football? Style, dressing, painting nails. Who cares?
I don't care in particular. I'm just saying because it's a thing that is on social media and it's being brought up, and it's just a question. That's being put out there. But
I see it all across social media, and obviously as well. And it's as a fan asking that question, like it's like, all right, like that's. What are you doing?
It's a sticky situation just in general, like you said, because I think the character thing, like for example, when he was at USC this past year and he had the whole blowout crying on to his mom and his dad or whatever. And then after the game, he said he's going to go home and cuddle with his dogs and watch Netflix. Like,
right.
I mean, like I get it, but also at the same time, in the NFL, you're going to have to hold yourself to a higher standard. Right. You're not playing the Pac-12 football. You're playing in the NFL. You're the face of the franchise.
That's the other thing, because I think that regardless if we would admit it or not, I think about 99% of us college athletes, if we faced a loss like that, we would probably all in our heads and in our souls be like, I just want to go home.
Right. But you don't go and you're not going to say
you're not going to go on
No.
national TV and say that in front of a camera. But like that's the other thing. It's like he's making so much money, he doesn't care.
When
he's
you're that good,
say whatever he wants.
Oh yeah. When you're that good, I think it doesn't even matter at that point. And I believe that, sticking on the quarterbacks here, Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels, I mean, maybe you can, whatever you want to say, Caleb Williams is the best out of all three of those. Talent-wise, like you, maybe not character, but talent, production level on the field, his ability to scramble, his ability to, everything. I think he checks all the boxes.
Right.
I mean, if he's the closest thing to Mahomes, which is crazy to think about,
that's
but
the
he
other
is.
Thing. And that's the fun conversation is you get into these quarterback debates, and obviously I love JJ McCarthy, and you get all the people, especially Jim Harbaugh and other people who are Big Ten bias, Michigan bias, whatever you want to say, like JJ's the best quarterback in the draft, blah, 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 because he's won championships, whatever. But then you take, like you just said, say you take the best coach of all time, and we'll use Bill Belichick, for example, and we'll take the best receiver of all time. I don't want to use Tom Brady as an example because obviously they had a lot of success together. You take, let's say, Calvin Johnson, whatever. You take one of the best at their position, one of the best coaches, you put them together, you would think success. But if they don't have a good relationship and they're butting heads and they can't get on the same page together, it's not going to work. You get a really, really good talented quarterback like Patrick Mahomes and a really, really good coach like Andy Reid. Look back at Andy Reid's career in terms of Philly and KC and how long it took for him to get to the Super Bowl. And he didn't get it until Patrick Mahomes came along.
Right.
But you look at all the quarterback relationships that he's had and player relationships that he's had as a coach with his players, he's never had anything like he does with Patrick.
No.
The way that they get along, the way that they coincide, the way that they can think together and operate together, and the way that they understand each other. Patrick knows what Andy's thinking. He knows what he wants to call. He knows how he's going to call it. Andy knows what Patrick's thinking. Andy knows what Patrick's good at, what he needs to do, and what plays he needs to call to be able to let Patrick succeed. And that's why Kansas City's been so successful over the last few years. And I think that that's so overlooked in sports in general, but especially football, college, high school, NFL. That coach-to-player relationship is so important. And I wish that GMs would focus on it more in terms of signing free agents, drafting. And you look at, obviously, bias, Detroit.
Yeah.
You look at the Lions, and you pair Dan Campbell with Brad Holmes, their GM, and all the players that they've brought onto that team.
Yeah.
It's not about who's the flashiest, who's the best at their position, who's going to do the most on the field. It's about who fits our culture and how can we have a team and make it successful. And that's why the Lions got to where they were last year.
Yeah.
There's no reason that the Detroit Lions should have been up at halftime.
Right?
Hurts my soul in that NFC Championship game. But
that's a whole
it's
story.
1,000% because of the way that the coaching staff and the players are cohesive together and how they work and feed off one another.
I think the most recent, I guess, coach to player one that comes to mind for me, kind of how just piggybacking off what you said, is Steph Curry and Steve Kerr.
Yeah.
Just in the NBA, Steve Kerr knows exactly what Steph is thinking. Mm-hmm. Steph Curry knows exactly what Steve is thinking. They have that coach-player relationship all these years in the NBA, and Steve Kerr understands Steph.
Right.
I think that's kind of goes back to Mahomes and Andy Reid. Brady understood Belichick. Belichick understood Brady. So,
that's why, like, I think back to the golden age of the Heat and LeBron.
Yeah.
Spoelstra and LeBron, like,
yep.
they got along.
That was LeBron's best coach he's ever had. Imagine if LeBron, I mean, we've always had this conversation and debate going to the NBA here briefly. Imagine if LeBron had a Phil Jackson like Michael and Kobe had with Phil.
Right.
Imagine if LeBron had Popovich.
I know.
Oh my gosh, he'd probably.
There's no reason that Lakers team shouldn't be. There's no reason that they should be clawing for a play-in
spot. They're in the play-in spot right now. They're 45-35. They just lost their last two games. They have a couple games left. There's no reason why they should be in that position. They should be a top 5 team in the West. No ifs, ands, or buts. But that's how it is. But it's just one of those things.
Yeah. And it sucks. I mean, and it was me too before I started coaching. Even at the high school level, like. So many fans around the world, name the league, name the sport, name the team. They think that, like, the coach doesn't matter. It's the players who's producing, who's whatever. And I think in football it's a lot different in terms of the scheme and the play calls. It gets a lot more integral in what exactly is happening and taking place behind the scenes. But even in other sports, in basketball and baseball, where you're running sets or making bullpen changes or pinch hitting somebody in baseball, having that coach who understands what's happening and knows their players on a personal level and knows how they're feeling on a certain day and what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. It's about putting people in positions to succeed. And if you don't have the people to be able to make that happen, you could have the greatest athletes on the world with a piss poor coach who doesn't know the athletes. It's not going to work. It's not going to be integral. It's not going to happen and be successful like you would think or hope. And that's why I give so much credit to so many coaches. I mean, especially in my case, especially after, I ended my career in college. I was so bitter at my coaches as to what happened and how it happened. And when I didn't know any better. I didn't know the ins and outs of it. And And now spending the last few years coaching in high school, like I have the utmost respect for all the coaches that I played for. And, it's a different world. And you know, sometimes you just got to take a step back and see it through a different lens to truly understand. But yeah, I mean, I give when next time your team wins a game or a championship, thank the coach. Give props to the coach.
Well, look at Deion Sanders. I mean, yeah, they were rocky last year and they started off hot, but I mean, he's changing the culture in Colorado. Yeah. He is building something special in Colorado. We're going to see this year what Shedeur Sanders is made of, and we'll see from there. But Deion Sanders is completely revitalizing that Colorado culture.
That's another thing. That's an interesting topic, because I think that honestly, you could look at the college football media world and you could probably say it's split 50-50 on how they feel about it.
Of course.
But I look at it, and at the end of the day, and this is why I love being a coach at my age, fresh out of college, doing what I did, being separated enough from the kids in terms of an age gap to be able to effectively communicate and let them do what they want to do and not think that we're just, buddies hanging out. But at the same time, we are, buddies. And I love each and every one of the kids that I coach, and it allows them to have that relationship with me and to be able to communicate and know that, hey, what I'm saying is from my heart and I'm not just saying it just to say it. And I think that that's where Deion's very successful, is he is able to build those relationships with those kids. And I think that the reason that he had that rocky start last year, or the whole year really, it was a good start, but rocky finish. Being an offensive line guy, that offensive line was bad.
Very bad. D-line was terrible too.
Defense was bad. I mean, you just look at, and that's what goes back to, especially in the football world, is the players on the field and the coaches. Right? The scheme does one thing, the players do the other thing. All right, you can have the best scheme in the world, players got to execute. All right, I think that Deion had a great scheme. I think the offense was great. At times, a lot of the time, offensive line didn't block, didn't give time.
No.
Run game wasn't there. Defenses never respected it because, hey, we realize your offensive line's not very good. We're not going to respect your run game until you run all over us for a little bit, and then maybe we'll adjust. We're going to sit back. We know you're going to chuck the ball. We're going to try and prevent it as much as we can. We know your defense sucks. We're going to do what we want to do on offense. All we got to do is outscore you. And that's what it ended up happening. Yeah. Like that, I remember watching the Stanford-Colorado game.
Oh, yeah. Friday night. It was a Friday night game.
Yeah, it was Thursday or Friday night. It was, I think it was Friday night. Mm-hmm. It was disgusting. Yeah. I mean, it was like, 45-43 or something final.
Stanford came back down, was it 14 or 17? Yeah, they came back. They had that insane catch at the end, and Stanford ended up winning it. Yeah. But that's a player development issue also in a way.
And that's another thing. Like Stanford is, I mean, you think back to when we were in high school, like watching Christian McCaffrey and
Andrew
Luck, Jim Harbaugh, those guys, Bryce Love, McCaffrey. Mm-hmm. Like Stanford was a powerhouse. Yeah. And now they are like
nowhere to be found.
And that whole athletic program too, it's just so mind-boggling to me at how. And it might be attributed to NIL now, and that's really the unfortunate thing. Going back to the NIL, the other unfortunate thing is you're going to start to see in the next couple years a separation and a huge gap in terms of schools that have boosters that are willing to pay the money that it's going to take to be successful, and these other schools that aren't. And that's what. I have this conversation with a lot of my buddies a lot of the time, and that's what we're worried about as Boilermakers. Obviously, a great basketball program, a great run. Monday night was
we haven't even got into that part
devastating. But just to be there in the Final Four again and get to the national championship game. Credit to UConn, they're a great team. But you look at the Purdue faithful. And the amount of people that were there at that game, I mean, it's second to none in terms of a fan base and a family that a university has for their sports teams. I mean, we went from, I think the biggest thing that I can point to is you look at the 2016 Purdue team, the year before Jeff Brom got there, the year before my first year. I mean, they probably had Ross-Ade Stadium where we played sitting right behind us. I don't know if the camera can see it, but I think we're at about 60,000 capacity, and I mean they were probably that 2016 averaging maybe 8,000 fans a game.
Wow.
Nobody came. And you get a new coach, you get a new team, a new scheme, and you go out in your first game and we play that first game my freshman year 2017, we played Lamar Jackson in Louisville in Indianapolis. And we were like about to win that game until the very end. Lamar Jackson's Lamar Jackson. He did his thing. But you bring that kind of energy to a fan base who's longing to love their school and love what they have to provide. And the next game was this game right here. This is Michigan at home. And that was you look at that picture and 60,000 sold out. I mean, it's like that. Like those types of fan bases are the best, unbelievable. I don't think I ever played or went to after that moment in a game in Ross-Ade that wasn't sold out. Mackey Arena, Purdue basketball sold out every single game. But those are all like hardworking Midwestern Indiana families that went to Purdue. Their grandparents went to Purdue, parents went to Purdue, kids go to Purdue. They love it. Like that's their school. That's what they do. It's not some SEC school like Alabama or Florida or Texas A&M where they're chilling in West Palm Beach, Florida, and they're just gonna, wire $1 million to the NIL fund to watch their team be good.
Yeah.
Like that's not who Purdue is, unfortunately. Yeah. That's not the types of graduates that we have. That's not the type of fans and people that we have. And that's fine. Like that's where the disparity of NIL comes in, is like that's what college sports should be. That's what universities and schools and teams and fans should be. That's how it should be. Like, I love this team and I love this school no matter what. Well, I don't care what happens.
Well, Caden Proctor clearly didn't love Alabama. I don't know if you saw recently with him. He left Alabama, went to Iowa for the NIL, and then came back to Alabama. Yeah. So your point is exactly correct, and it stands. And it's part of it has ruined college football. And I think, like, bringing up what you said about Saban earlier, it was a big part of him leaving college football. I mean, he didn't have anything else left to prove, but he's like, I don't want to coach these kids anymore with the NIL in place. And you have friends, one of your friends coaches at Alabama, so you understand it, but it's tough to see the landscape has completely changed. It's all about money. It's all about NIL. These kids care about their brand by themselves. They don't care about the team. I'm getting my $7 million a year. Why? It doesn't matter to me. I'm not going to play in the bowl game. Why do I need to try? I'm going to the NFL.
Right.
And it's tough, but that's the way it is.
And that's what's like it's so frightening and disappointing. And this is what we have conversations about with my boys is like, there's a very real possibility within the next 10 years that like a school like Purdue has to cut sports because of what it takes to put a football team out there.
Yeah.
Like you look 5 years down the road and you're going to have the top 10% of schools that are funding millions and millions of dollars to put a football team out there. And then you're going to look at these other lower Power 5 schools and mid-majors that aren't going to be able to compete at all.
So we didn't get a chance to talk about this on the show earlier, but right now, women's college basketball and women's basketball in general has been rising to the top. I don't know if you knew this, but 18.7 million viewers watched the national the college basketball championship between South Carolina and Iowa, and in one reason why, the Caitlin Clark effect. So, thoughts?
This is okay. Not to take away from women's college basketball and what Caitlin Clark brought and what that whole tournament was, which is awesome.
Absolutely.
But while I have the chance to say it, I have a big disparity to talk about. And I think this plays into a little bit of why women's national final was 18 and men's was 14.5 or
yeah, there was 4 million difference. Women had 4 more.
NCAA, CBS, TNT, whoever you are, why are you starting a college basketball national championship at 9:30 p.m.
West Coast time?
Why are we doing that? But even then, like Rose Bowl, Michigan, Alabama, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. West Coast time. National championship was in Houston.
New Year's Day.
5 p.m. or not 5 p.m. 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. Like national championship football, 6 p.m. Central.
Yeah, you have a good point.
Like, why are we? I get it. Okay, it's Phoenix time. We're starting at what, Mountain time?
2 hours.
7:30.
Yeah.
I get it. Okay, that's fine. But like, and we talk about in the talk of the media, especially in terms of like golf and baseball. So Jackson Holliday made his debut for that Major League Baseball for the Baltimore Orioles last night. And if you don't have MLB TV, you're not watching that game.
No,
it's not nationally televised.
No,
like the MLB and all these other sports, college basketball, WNBA, like they're all complaining about why isn't our sport growing? Like, make it more accessible.
Right.
Like, make it to where young kids, like, that's why you and I are sports fans, because
it's so accessible.
Us as kids,
yes,
in elementary school and grade school, are watching sports, and that's why we became sports fans. That's why we fell in love with the game. That's why we fell in love with certain teams and certain players, because we were able to watch the games.
Yep.
And that's why the NFL is so big. It's Sunday at 1 p.m. Like, even,
yeah,
you're a family that goes to church. You're a family that doesn't go to church. Whatever. You go to church. My family, for example, we go to church at 10 a.m.
Yep.
We're done by 11:45 noon. You go have lunch. You're home by 1 o'clock. Games start. You're able to sit there, watch the games. You got 4 o'clock games, or 1 o'clock games, 4 o'clock games, and then you got the Sunday night game.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. You're able to watch the sport, watch your players, watch your teams, grow the game, experience it. But to have a game, especially like Purdue UConn, which is probably, I mean, it didn't end up being as good as I wanted it to be, but one of the best final or national championship matchups that you've had in a long time.
A long time, yeah, absolutely.
But to have it started, I mean, to be honest, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that I was very upset at how it went, but I didn't, like, Purdue went down, I don't know, 10 plus 12, and to be honest, I turned off and went to bed because it was almost 11 o'clock at the point, and I had work the next day because it's on a Monday. Yeah, I mean, it sucks, but back to your original question, I mean, dude, Caitlin Clark is a stud. Like, I went to so being at Purdue, and we were an hour away from Indy. We went to a lot of Pacers games, and that's where the Indiana Fever WNBA play at Santa Arena, and the likely draft spot #1 for Caitlin Clark. And I think I saw a stat where it's like 37 of their 40 games are already scheduled to be nationally televised, which is awesome.
Yeah,
but like, you talk about having accessible access to watch and to be able to grow the sport. Like, you got to be able to schedule these games on better days and better times. And I think that speaks to why that disparity was so much different, because like the women's national championship on Sunday night was 7 o'clock, perfect time. Like, I didn't even know that it was.
No, it was 3:30.
Was it?
Yeah, it was 3:30. You're thinking about the Friday night game, UConn versus Iowa. That was a late game. That was a 10 o'clock game.
Yes. But I remember that's why, because I was sitting here Sunday watching baseball.
Yes.
I love baseball. So I was watching baseball. If the camera can see, we got a pretty good setup with some TVs here, and I had some baseball games on, and boom, national championship, Iowa, South Carolina's on. Boom, threw it on the big TV.
Dude, that was a great game.
Sitting there watching, didn't have to make an effort to go out of my way to watch it. They made it perfectly accessible. No excuses to watch the game.
Yep.
18 million viewers. Perfect. Like, we got to be able to do that across all sports.
I personally think, and this is where I stand, I thought the women's game was more entertaining than the men's game. I really do. I thought what Caitlin Clark brought to the table against South Carolina, who was 37-0, Dawn Staley, who they just won their third championship, and with Camila Cardosa, Falacia Wiley, Raven Johnson. I mean, South Carolina wasn't even supposed to win the national championship or the championship because they had so many freshmen and they had so many players leave last year. And then you thought like the Caitlin Clark effect. And I thought what was remarkable at Caitlin Clark in Iowa was how they were even able to get to the championship. Yeah, they were the 1 seed, but they still had to go through LSU, still had to go through UConn. I mean, those are 2 big teams right there. So, I mean, I thought it was entertaining. And what's even crazy is I've had conversations with people that are like, I would have never watched women's college basketball before. And now Caitlin Clark, I mean, we just saw it. Now she's going to be in the WNBA. You're going to want to watch Caitlin Clark on whatever night she's going to be playing.
Well, you look at Barstool Sports, and you look at Dave Portnoy and Pardon My Take, Big Cat, PFT, just the way that they were like so invested into Caitlin Clark and in the whole tournament in general. But it's like, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with how important the coaches are. And like, I've got the utmost respect for Dawn Staley. She's a stud.
Yeah.
I mean, she is a bad-ass coach.
She is. Stands on business.
Yeah, exactly. She does.
Louis Vuitton
She knows exactly what she needs to do with her players, with the group of girls that she has. And it as much as it hurts, credit to UConn, same way.
Yeah. Jean Ariema, they've won 11 national championships.
Yeah, and like it really is like it is so much on as much as we want to focus on the players and how well they perform. They don't do any of that without their coaches and their leadership that they have. I mean, culture's such a big thing. I mean, I know a lot of fans that, especially at the start of seasons, where it's like, hey, like we've got a really good group of players and we think we're going to be successful, but how far are we going to go? And those questions are always answered with how well the culture is and how well the coaches are. And Dawn Staley really exemplified that and what she did with South Carolina the last couple of years, and especially this year, and going out. And I mean, for me, like Caitlin Clark, I mean, you look at the rest of that Iowa team, and you take South Carolina, for example, where they are just across the board
deep.
So good, so deep. And then you look at Iowa, where it's like, without Caitlin Clark, Iowa's nothing. I mean, they've got good players.
They've got good players, but nothing. Right,
but
you're absolutely right.
Caitlin brings an aspect to the game that they wouldn't have without her. I mean, it really is like, I remember watching that final over South Carolina, and I'm thinking back to like 2016 Warriors, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson.
Yes.
Where she is just like taking the ball down the court, making a pass, like somebody's setting a screen for her. She's cutting around 5 feet behind the 3-point line, getting the ball, shooting, drained immediately. Like you getting those looks in college basketball or women's college basketball is one thing, where you're going to be able to get open looks in terms of just how they play the game and how they're able to kind of set screens and find open shots. But to have someone like Caitlin Clark that's able to knock them down at an unreal clip was special to watch.
I think about Caitlin Clark, too, is she gives me that Wayne Gretzky, that Tom Brady, that Michael Jordan, that Tiger Woods, like that killer instinct. Like, I mean, I really think that she is going to be, I mean, she's already in the record books forever. Every time you're going to watch women's college basketball or hear about women's basketball, her name will be brought up. She broke the all-time record in college basketball between men and women's. She just shattered the records in women's college basketball for March Madness for the three-pointers, assists, points per game. I mean, what's not to like about her? And she's fun to watch.
My favorite thing about it all is you mentioned the LeBrons and the Tom Bradys and how good they are and what they accomplish in their careers. And you still don't think about, obviously you think about what they did and their championships, but what stands out is how many haters they had.
Oh my gosh.
And you look at Caitlin Clark now, she hasn't played a minute of WNBA basketball. And you've got half the WNBA already hates her. Sue Bird, like, she's nothing until she wins a championship, blah, blah. It's so funny to watch it really is jealousy. Like, there's never been anybody in women's basketball that's done what she's done at this age. Like, you look back at it, I remember the Brittany Griner days at Baylor. I mean, she was dominant. Like
Candace Parker at Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who was it? Kelsey Plum at Washington.
Yes.
I mean, these girls were awesome.
Unreal. Maya Moore.
Awesome.
I don't remember. Was she UCLA? Player. Maya Moore? I think she was.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
But they were great women's college basketball players, but they were never
this level
good enough to receive hate from people. And now you look at Caitlin Clark, where she is undoubtedly the best women's college basketball player, let alone college basketball player in general.
Ever. One of the best in men's and women's.
And she's already got a target on her head in the WNBA. So, I mean, I'm excited to watch her career in the WNBA and see how she succeeds. I know she will. And, credit to her to – I know, especially myself being barely a college athlete, but still having that fire and drive every single day, every single game, every single practice. just to see her work ethic and her spirit and drive that she had. And she doesn't give a crap, man.
I'll throw this in there for the Swifties out there. Caitlin Clark is a Taylor Swift fan. Okay. I saw the TikTok of her, and she was singing one of the Taylor Swift songs, and I was like, all right, you've sold me, Caitlin Clark. You've got
Dude,
you've got my vote.
It's about finding the fans. And that's the other thing. It's like you look at you bring up Taylor Swift and the whole Travis Kelce thing, and like a year ago when Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, you never put those two in a sentence together.
No.
Every single fan, person, whoever you were, Chiefs fan, non-Chiefs fan, you knew Travis Kelce. You knew how good of a tight end he was. You respected him. Best in the game.
Yep.
And now, all of a sudden, he starts dating Taylor Swift.
Biggest pop star in the world.
Being in the media every single day. And out of nowhere, half the people hate him.
Yeah.
And it's like, why? What are you doing?
Because who he's with.
Same thing.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. No, but the Caitlin Clark thing is a great point, and it's so special that men get a chance to actually watch a really, really good women's basketball player, or arguably the best women's college basketball player ever. It's special to see, and something that you probably will always look back on and go, Caitlin Clark, I watched her when I was younger. She's that good.
Well, even like a couple years ago, Sabrina Ionescu.
Yes,
she was a dog.
She's on the New York Liberty
and
now.
we're sitting. I remember we were sitting at Lucky's Crew watching the three-point
contest between Steph and her. Yeah,
and it's just so funny to sit there and watch that, and to it actually, like, you 10 years ago, or even you go back to almost 10 years ago now, like 2016, Steph Curry. And you watch the Warriors win that championship, and then you could look to me and say, hey, in a couple years, some girls basketball player is going to be competing with him in a three-point contest. And you'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? No way. So, yeah, I mean,
social
it's
media,
awesome.
Too. Social media.
It's awesome.
It is.
mean, you've seen over the last 10 years the women's college basketball and WNBA in general get so much better, so much more competitive with the talent that they're bringing in and the talent that the college basketball world for the girls is bringing. I mean, not only Caitlin, you got Paige Buchers, you got Angel,
Juju Watkins,
you
Cameron
got,
Brink from Stanford.
Haley Van Lith. You got so many big names around the sport now. And it's only going to get bigger and better.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome for college sports and for sports in general. And it truly does exemplify how awesome sports are and what it does for us as a society in general, and how it brings us together. Like you said, 3 years ago, you put me on the couch watching whatever on a Sunday, and you could tell me that the women's national championship is going to be on for basketball. I'm like, I don't care. I'm not going to watch.
Yeah.
But you bring someone like Caitlin Clark in, and it's like must-watch TV. Let's do it.
Yeah. A few things about the NFL I wanted to ask you. What do you think about the hip drop tackle ban?
Man, football is becoming something else, and if you look at it, if you take a step back and you try to understand it and look at it from a broad perspective, it really does come back down to, and it ties into, especially going back to how baseball's starting now, and just in the first 2-3 weeks of the season, the amount of starting pitchers and pitchers in general that are going down with injuries, with how much money these pitchers are getting paid, how hard they're trying to throw. They're hurting themselves over it. And that's what it comes down to in the NFL is so much money is involved in these professional sports nowadays that the people that are making these rule changes and the people that are implementing the rules are the people that are affected by the financial implications of what happens with who's on the field, who's not on the field, who's getting hurt, who's being productive, who's not.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the root of it. I think that a lot of these guys are paid so much money that if any injury happens, regardless whether it's from a hip drop tackle. You look at the example from last year. It was the Mark Andrews play.
Yeah, against the Bengals
hurt.
on Thursday night.
Right. And dude, Mark Andrews is a stud. You got Travis Kelce, him, George Kittle, best tight ends in the game, and you lose one of the top 3 tight ends in the game to an injury. It's easy to sit back and say that shouldn't happen. Like, that needs to be banned because he got hurt because of it.
Yeah.
Like, he's a highly paid player, and we missed out on him on the field, but we still got to pay him the money. Like, how can we prevent that? So I get that from a financial standpoint and an ownership standpoint to where, okay, how can we change the game to protect players more? And that's truly the root of it and why these things are happening. I mean, you go into the whole kickoff change too. Same thing. But, like, at the end of the day, it's football. Like, these guys know what they're signing up for. I remember 2016, I went to the Michigan-Florida State Orange Bowl in Miami.
Yeah.
And two of Michigan's top players that were first-round draft picks, Jabril Peppers, Jake Butt.
Yep.
I remember Jabril Peppers warming up for that game. He came out dressed in full pads pregame. And then right before the game started, we all got notifications on our phone that he wasn't going to play. Jabril Peppers sitting out the bowl game, preparing for the draft. Like, all right, that sucks. Like, it's stupid, whatever. Everyone's pissed, blah, blah, blah. Then second quarter, Jake Butt, really, really good tight end at Michigan.
Yeah.
He catches the pass, running down the sidelines, gets tackled, tears his ACL on the sidelines. Second quarter of the Orange Bowl against Florida State, where in hindsight, like, especially now, college football was the other thing that sucks, which is good that the playoffs expanding, more teams are involved, more meaningful games. But if you're not in the playoff and you're not playing for national championship, an Orange Bowl victory, what?
Right. The Georgia FSU one this past year.
Exactly.
63-0 or 3 or something. Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, as a fan, you want your guys to be out there because you're supporting your team, you're paying tickets to go see a game. You want them to win.
Yeah.
So you want your best players out there to give you the best chance to win, which makes sense. But you got a guy like Jake Butt that goes out there, tears his ACL, and luckily he had a pretty good insurance policy on himself. So
I remember that, yeah.
He got paid out and still got drafted by the Broncos, but unfortunately never was able to recover from that ACL. I think his either first or second year with the Broncos ended up tearing it again. Had to retire from football. Never really played any meaningful snaps in the NFL when he should have. He was a really good player. Luckily for him, it's turned out into a really good career with the Big Ten Network broadcasting, and he's done a great job. But, I mean, you look at all these rules and the way that they're changing the game and implementing different things, and it's easy to be on side A or side B where you're like, okay, I get it. I understand how they want player safety. They want to protect the guys, their assets, their financial liabilities, their financial whatever. Like at that, not only in the college level, professional level, everything. And that's the biggest thing that I learned through my injury in college is, as much as you want to be an individual and a human being, when you are on a team at that level, you're not. You are either an asset or a liability. You're either someone who produces or someone who hinders. And when you are injury prone or you're playing the game in a way where guys are susceptible to injuries, that hurts the business in terms of the sport. And so I get it as to why they're making these rule changes. As a fan and as somebody who loves and appreciates the game of football in general, it sucks because you're hindering defensive players in terms of tackling and stopping plays and doing certain things. And honestly, I think that it could even open up defenders back to the hip drop tackle thing, where like if a defender has to go out of their way to put themselves in a certain position to make a legal tackle,
yeah,
they could end up getting themselves hurt, or they're going to not make the play, They're going to then be seen by the organization and the defense and the coaches as a guy that missed a tackle, missed a play, gave up a touchdown, gave up a first down, whatever it is. That's going to hurt them as a player because of a rule that didn't allow them to do something that they would have been able to do or that they did do in college and in high school. So they've been playing this game as a linebacker or a corner or a safety. Pop Warner, high school, college, they've been taught to tackle, play defense in a certain way all their lives, and now you're going to implement this rule to where they have to change everything. I think that next year is going to be very interesting to see how it transpires, how many penalties are actually called from those types of tackles, and how that affects games. But you can look at it from two sides of the mirror. I mean, it's protecting players or hurting players in terms of their production and how they play the game.
I think you're absolutely right. That's a great way to put it. But before we wrap up officially, I wanted to ask you, what kind of advice would you give to a young up-and-coming athlete who's aspiring to be in the NFL?
Well, I mean, I'm in a great position to answer that right now with how I'm coaching. We've had, I've been blessed and fortunate to be at a school has a great coaching staff, and we have a lot of really talented players. And like I mentioned before, our quarterback who's going to play at Michigan in the Big Ten. And, I've been fortunate to build a really good relationship over the last couple years. He was a freshman when I first got there and started coaching, and, he'll be going into his senior year this year.
Okay, so we talked a lot about college football, your college football career, but I did want to insert a few funny questions into the show, and I got to have your opinion. So what world would you rather live in, Harry Potter or Twilight?
Oh, man. I mean, probably Harry Potter. I don't know what character I'd be.
Well,
if you look at Chamber of Secrets for example, hate snakes. You catch me dead. You send me down there in that chamber and I see a big snake skin, I'm getting out. Also, I'm terrified of drowning, so I don't remember what the other movie was when they had to go underwater and
I don't
save
remember.
the mermaids.
That's so
whatever.
long ago.
Definitely Harry Potter, though. Harry Potter is a G. Hermione, I love you.
So Harry Potter for you?
Harry Potter.
Who's your celebrity crush?
Jennifer Lawrence. Dude, right off the bat, I didn't even have to think
You didn't. That was right off the bat.
Yeah.
You didn't even think about that.
Well,
one.
there's a lot.
Oh, one. That's your one?
Natalie Portman or Jennifer Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah.
Okay. Jennifer Aniston for me.
Okay. That's a good one.
If you could be any animal, mythical creature, what would you be and why?
Oh, man. I don't know. I want to say lion, but I feel like that's such just like a typical answer that's so boring.
I feel like you were going to say lion for some reason because you've talked about lions before.
Well, so I've been to South Africa a couple times and I've seen some lions, and they are known and feared as the kings of the jungle. But every time that I've seen a lion, they have been laying down in the grass, sleeping with not a care in the world, lazy as hell.
Yeah.
Sounds like a pretty good life. Be a badass dude that everybody fears, but then just be chilling whenever you want. Like, okay, yeah, we'll go with lion.
Who do you think the greatest athlete of all time is?
I was thinking about this question the other day. I gotta say, you gotta go Michael Phelps.
Wow. Michael Phelps, really?
Yeah. Dude, the feats that he accomplished and what he did as
LeBron?
Dude, LeBron's one of the best basketball players of all time.
Athlete?
But in terms of athletes, the training, the amount of calories that dude had to eat, and the way that he performed.
What about Bo Jackson?
Well, you look at Bo Jackson and you look at Dion, who did football and baseball at the same time too. It's like, eh.
So you go with Phelps swimming? Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to say some. Honestly, like I'd rather say some dude who's competed in, 10+ Ironman triathlons or whatever. Like, dude, I'm not kidding. To be like in terms of athlete, like those dudes are freaks.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, to be able to compete at a high level in the NBA or the MLB or the NFL is one thing, but like in terms of athletes, I mean, that's strength, endurance, championships, everything. Like, I think, I got to go with Michael Phelps.
What's the strangest food combination that you enjoy?
When I had to lose a lot of weight after being an offensive lineman, ground beef, rice, and a little bit of ketchup drizzled up over.
Oh, I've done that before. That's boring, though.
Like,
that's boring.
The ground beef and the ketchup doesn't bother me. It was the ketchup and the rice.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Exactly.
That's gross.
Which was like, because I remember seeing it. Like, I watched when I did it. I obviously had a lot of motivation and inspiration from some guys that did it on YouTube and whatnot. And that was one of the meals that I got from YouTube. And I remember seeing them put ketchup on rice. And
that's
I'm like,
disgusting.
That can't be good. But I remember looking at the ground beef and rice by itself, and I'm like, I can't eat this. Like, I got to put something on it. So I remember putting ketchup on it, and I was like, it's not too bad.
Why ketchup, though? Because of those guys on YouTube?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else I would have put on ground beef and rice besides ketchup. Like, the ketchup goes well with the ground beef.
Maybe onion and garlic
the rice is kind of well, you season the ground beef.
Oh, yum
like
yum
the
sauce.
rice is kind of bland, so
it
you
is.
don't really
Yum sauce.
Really, a lot of calories, man.
Oh, you're see, I'm not thinking of it like that. I'm just going for like
sugar-free ketchup.
Game
changer.
Ketchup.
Yeah.
You want to hear my really strange food concoction?
Let's hear it.
You probably aren't ready for this one. I don't tell a lot of people this one. I haven't done it in a long time. I used to eat raw ramen noodles.
Like crunchy?
So I'd put ramen noodles in the bag, take the packet and dump it in the bag, crush it up and eat it. Dude, it's not bad, but it's so like
I'm
budget.
not gonna lie. Sometimes when I do like,
I haven't done it in a long time.
So I do like if I was just to do if I wanted to cut back on carbs or whatever, I do a big bowl of ground beef, and then I wanted something crunchy in there, so I take like 4 or 5 chips and I crunch them on, and get that little crunchy in there.
Like so Lay's or like Tostitos?
No, like Tostitos. Yeah.
Oh,
like
okay, that's not bad. If Lay's is a little suspect, that's
but
very sus.
I get the little crunchy vibe. Yeah.
It's also I like SpaghettiOs out of the can cold.
Cold?
Yeah.
That's psychotic.
SpaghettiOs, the meatballs, cold right out of the can. I'll eat it right out of the can.
Dude, maybe if I've had a couple drinks, maybe.
No, I'll eat it, dude. I'll eat it for lunch. Or like Dinty Moore. Have you ever had Dinty Moore? Mm-hmm. Oh, it's just very low budget. It's beef stew at the grocery store. You put it in the stove. It's like $3. It's a nice little meal. So but the ramen noodles one is that's the one right there. And yours is the ketchup on the rice.
Something that I've gotten put on, so every time that I go to Publix, like this is what really started was during the hurricane. When we'd be working a lot of jobs, helping clean up and renovate. We'd run to Publix down the road for lunch. And I'd want, like some chicken or sub, whatever. Yeah. And I get like a little fruit thing. And they always have at Publix, they have like the little mango cups. And they put the packets, like the spicy seasoning.
Yes.
Apparently that's a big thing, putting like spicy seasoning on mango. It's good.
No, the spicy seasoning on fruit is a thing.
I didn't know that. So I'd get the cup of mango and I'd just like toss the spicy seasoning and just eat the mango because I love mango.
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, one time I got it and I'm like, this is weird, but I'm going to try it. And I sprinkled it. Dude, it's good.
Really? So now that's like your new thing?
Yeah.
All right.